Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Fetterman and the race in Pennsylvania, and pretty bold strategy. Pretty much, Fetterman had a stroke, and so now they're going with Oz's mean because Oz is like, hey, this guy is not debating. People can see videos or see Fetterman in person and know he's not on the up and up. Like, he's kind of rivaling Joe Biden with just how bad he's sort of doing vocally, and so they've decided to come out and just admit it that he's not up to his best. But also, they're like, he put out a campaign video that's pretty remarkable, so I'm going to show it to you guys today. Stephen Miller on Twitter was like, he's running for Senate, not Make-A-Wish. It's really bizarre. So we're gonna take a look at that. Also, another hate hoax bites the dust. There was a young volleyball player claiming that when she was playing volleyball that people were shouting N-words at the black players, and turns out that wasn't the case. But people certainly, at least when the police reviewed the video, the person that they ejected and decided to ban hadn't said those words. However, they decided to ban them anyway, because that's just what the woke mob does. And also, Joe Biden apparently is ready to go to war with Americans, and we can't win because we don't have F-15s. So he has a pretty big obsession with guns, pretty big obsession with disarming the American people, and people should be concerned just in general with Biden and his how much he likes to overstep his bounds as an elected official, and how much more damage people like him can do if they are allowed to continue on the path that they are going. I think he's making a lot of Obama did a lot of bold, terrible things as well, but he was, I would say, more dangerous, and he was more calculating and suave than Biden. Biden is just like, let me hit you all with a hammer, like straight in the forehead. And Obama didn't operate like that. And Biden isn't nearly as likable as Obama. I mean, I didn't like Obama, but other people liked Obama. So it's a good thing he's a doddering old fool. But he's still a dangerous doddering old fool, especially if we do not win in the midterm. So we got to definitely keep our eye on the prize. But before we jump into everything today, I want to encourage you guys to go blacktnews.com, check out different articles on the website, different videos that I have. Make sure that you're liking, subscribing, and sharing, dropping your email on the website, but also follow me across, all the social media platforms. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, all the links should be pretty much in the description. You can go to the website to check those out. All my handles are at Black Tea News, black like the color, tea like the drink, with the exception of Twitter. That one is at True Black Tea. Check out different merchandise that we have on the website. People are so excited because of pumpkin spice season, and I made this cup last year around this time. It was a little late for pumpkin spice season, but go ahead and pick that up and trigger some leftists in your life. I also have a shirt of them too. I drew that little chibi Trump myself, so go ahead and pick up the pumpkin spice mugs and the t-shirts. We also have other stuff like the Roe and Casey aborted, life wins. Really like this pro-choice men are sus shirts. Sus stands for suspect. And we also have the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racism on the back. And I'll just show one more. The goat hoodies and goat t-shirts, which you do have in different colors. But it's still warm right now, but it'll be cold soon, and the hoodies are very comfortable. So go ahead and check out that stuff on the website. Also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. You guys know that We're not libs here. We know that everything in life, there's cost. It costs to stream, costs to get, obviously, here at the studio. It costs the equipment I use, software I use, everything. There's a cost associated. And if you would like to support, I very much appreciate it. There's so much to do before the midterm, so many things to push, to make. And this is a lot for one person to do. Sometimes people are like, who's on this page? And sometimes people think it's a guy or for some reason. I don't know. It's just me right now. If you would like to help Black Tea News grow and you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation, whether it's a small gift like $10 or $50 or whatever you can do. I very much appreciate it. And if you cannot, or frankly don't want to, I can respect that. I thank you guys for watching, for commenting, for liking, for tagging other people to come and watch. That all very much does help. So thank you guys for being a part of Black Tea News. Also want to thank Bright Mission Pack. I'm in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. No one cares. They just like to uplift conservative voices. So I appreciate being in the studio. And I've been in here for more than about a year. So God bless them. I like the space. Alrighty then. You guys know they like to start with a funny. And it's not a meme today. We're going to go right into the story because the Oz team, they've been really getting on Fetterman because they really want to debate. And it's nice to talk a little bit positively about Oz, though they're going into like little childish sort of antagonizing territory, but it's a little humorous, so we shall grant it. Because I just didn't like them in the primary too much. I thought there was controversial stuff. This stuff still remains, but it is what it is. He's the person, and he's going against Fetterman, and Fetterman is a very radical person, who wants to basically decriminalize heroin and other stuff like that. So empty out the prisons. It just won't be a good thing if he gets in there. So I'd rather have Oz. Obviously, rather have Oz. So Oz has been trying to debate. Fetterman will not debate. They're dodging, and it's obviously because he's not well. He's not well in the least bit. So Oz's team actually sent out a list of concessions for the debate, and it's very much trolly, but it's funny. The Dr. Oz campaign released the following list of concessions it is willing to make for John Fetterman to agree to debate in 1 week on KDKA TV, a debate Oz agreed to without any preconditions. Dr. Oz promises not to intentionally hurt John's feelings at any point. We will allow John to have all of his notes in front of him, along with an earpiece, so he can have the answers given to him by his staff in real time. At any point, John Fetterman can raise his hand and say bathroom break. If the topic of his pardon, murders, come up, we will allow extra time for him to explain that second-degree murder is not as bad as first-degree murder, and we will pay for any additional medical personnel he might need to have on standby. Dang. So the first debate at KDKA is set for 1 week from today, but there's been no response from the lying liberal Fetterman, said Brittany Yannick, communications director from Dr. Oz for Senate. I mean, if I had to defend releasing convicted murderers and not paying my taxes 67 times, I'd be pretty worried too. I guess John Fetterman is afraid of debating Dr. Oz. So maybe Oz is ready to go. Maybe Oz is ready to go. I mean, when they had the debate with Republican primary, that's when like people started really paying attention to Kathy Barnett, because she had some good knife points basically, and then she was all the rage. But ultimately, Oz did end up taking it. He was the Trump's endorsed candidate. Sean Hannity was really pushing him. Rick Grinnell was like going so hard for him on Twitter, and I didn't like how hard they were going for him, especially how they were coming after other people in defense of him. I didn't like it in the least bit, but it is what it is now. And like I said, Fetterman cannot win. So Fetterman's team declined, obviously, the debate, basically because Oz is mean, and they talked about how mean he was. And they released this video, which is kind of bizarre.
How many of you, maybe yourself, have had a big health challenge in your own life? Yeah, any of your parents? Any of your children, maybe? Can you even imagine that if you had a doctor that was mocking your illness? Or ridiculing that? Well, here we are. Here we are right now.
And just for the record, I just wanted to make it clear that I'm laughing at the boo in the audience. It's and the faces in the video. This video it's not well done. I understand the sentiment, but it's really bizarre. But let's finish watching. I just didn't want to be like, she's laughing at a stroke. No, I'm not laughing at his medical condition or anyone else's medical condition. I'm laughing at the poor artistry of the video as someone who does this.
I would like to think that Dr. Oz may have really lost his way if you're going to make fun of somebody that had a stroke.
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever had his way, because this is a guy that made a career of selling miracle diet pills.
It's so bad. It's so bad. You guys got to think that's bad. I don't even like some of these crowd shots are crazy. Like this man right here just looking off to the side, like, what the heck is going on? Maybe he's not gonna say anything now, but when he gets to the polls, he's gonna be like, I can't vote for this dude. Who knows? Of course, there's a masked guy there. They're, they're not having the kind of intense look you get like from people like, I don't know, imagine like a church audience just sitting like, looking intensely in a sermon. Like none of them have the right facial expressions. Like what's with this lady right here? It's just so bad. Again, this isn't a Make-A-Wish video. This is someone who is running for the Senate, U.S. Senate. And I would think that instinctively that's him not being up to 100% is going to hurt him. So I can understand his team trying to flip it and make him seem like the sympathetic person in the situation, and like Oz is a doctor. So it's a bit predictable, and I think I maybe mentioned this about a week or two ago or something, that this might be the line that they go at, like a doctor going at someone, because other people are like, it's fair game, it's fair game, it's fair game, he's running for the Senate. And I'm like, he is a doctor though, so people so this path is pretty predictable from his team. But that video was not it. That video was not it. And there's a lot of other things to just talk about with Fetterman as far as his record. The other day we talked about how he said he doesn't like ID because Black people don't have ID, which is dumb and racist and ridiculous. Black people can get ID. Most everyone has ID. It's not hard to get. And if Democrats really think it's such a problem, they really need to help people get IDs, not be like, you just don't have to show your identification when you vote. Then that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But Fetterman also, some time ago, there was a Black guy and he just started chasing with a shotgun or something like that. I think maybe we played the video on here, and the guy wasn't a criminal or anything like that. He just jumped to conclusions and started chasing down the Black guy. Overreacted. And he's got a lot of issues now. I think some people speculated the RNC and the Republicans were too scared to broach on that issue. I did see them share that video. So I think maybe they're getting more into the groove of, we got to win this thing. And they do have to win this thing. They do have to win this thing. So they can keep hammering on his record and that he's missing. And it is important that he does debate. Fetterman in the past, in primaries, talked about how important debates were. He's just trying to dodge them now because of his condition. And I get that. But if we're not well enough to run, you should have let someone else do that. politics, sometimes it's bigger than you, and there could have been someone else in the wings who could have been running the ticket as hard as they can, who'd show up for debates and etc. So I can empathize with people and their health conditions, but sometimes you got to know when you have to step aside for the greater good. But it on top of just eliminate his sickness issue, he's just not a good candidate and shouldn't be elected anyway. And I'm glad that the polls the margin has, shrunk as far as Fetterman's lead. There was one time I was complaining because he was like 11 points ahead. They always do shrink when you get closer to the election. I mean, unless you're like just gonna get blown out of the water, like DeSantis is gonna blow Chris out of the water. But normally polls they do tighten. So we'll see how if he can pull it out. But it's a race. I think they're in it to win it. At the RNC, they were really concerned, but they need to win this thing. But that was a terrible video, and I can't get over that video. Speaking of terrible, so Biden went to that state, and Fetterman just didn't show up at the same event. And so the White House press secretary was asked, like, why weren't they going to be together? And she was like, oh, scheduling conflicts.
John Fetterman, the Democratic nominee in Pennsylvania, will not be at the event tomorrow with the president. Has their campaign given you a reason? Is the president disappointed that he won't be there for that event?
So I can't speak to the lieutenant governor. My understanding is he had an existing event, so I would refer you to his office or his campaign.
No way this stuff is like legit. Like Stacey Abrams, there was the same issue too. Like Biden went to Georgia and Stacey Abrams wasn't going to be there with him. And they're like, oh, she has all these other events and stuff to go to. He's a president. He's a president of the United States. And it's the same party. You're in the same party. You're in the same party. You try to go to events where the president is, if you like the president and you think it's going to be a benefit to you. That's just how it works. That's how it works. Sometimes there are engagements that you have to miss and you can't get to. But campaign stuff switches all the time. It has to be rearranged all the time. It's just the nature of politics. Things come up, and sometimes you have to go chase another better opportunity for votes or money, whatever's going to help you get elected. So no, I don't think that Fetterman just had another engagement that he could not show up or make it work when the president came to town. But everyone is aware of the fact that Biden's numbers are in the tank and he's not helping anyone. I'd be surprised if he came to Michigan to campaign for Whitmer. Or if he did, I'd be surprised if they ended up on the same stage together. That could happen. Maybe they're moronic and it'll happen, but he is not popular in the least bit. And people know that he's not a good president. People absolutely are aware of the fact that he's not a good president. Now, what are the crazy stuff that he said? Well, he's railing against guns again, of course. And he rambled on about a bunch of different things. But I wondered yesterday why F-15 was trending on Twitter. But I was so busy yesterday, I didn't really investigate it. So I kind of heard about it today. And I'm like, what is wrong with this man? So here's a little snippet of the F-15 speech when he's railing about guns. Of course, he said that our rights, our constitutional rights or whatever, aren't infinite or without limitation, etc. Which, by the way, our rights, people will say constitutional rights, and some people actually do believe that our rights are granted by government or they're granted by the Constitution. That's not true. We have God-given rights, and the Constitution lays out the limitations of the government itself. The government doesn't give us a right to free speech, FYI. We have a right to free speech, and it's written in the Constitution, so the government knows where they cannot interfere. That's how it's supposed to work. So they have a misconception about how it works anyway. And I think it's really interesting that you will have Biden talk about how there's no limitation. a right that you have. There are limitations on it, especially with the guns. But I'm like, how can people say this at the same time where they basically want unlimited abortion? And they're like, well, that you can't limit that. I'm like, how can you say that when you think that people self-defense and all that stuff associated with the gun, that reasons why they may want a firearm, which what the reason why you're supposed to have a firearm is because you don't, in case you need to fight against a tyrannical government. That's just it is what it is, whether you agree with it or you like it or not, is what it is. How can you say, well, that we have to limit that, so says the tyrannical government? But when it comes to, hey, there's a life inside of you, it's like, oh, we cannot limit abortion in the least bit. And Biden's pretty much to the, I won't say bad things about it at any point of time. His White House press secretary, all of them have been asked about it, and they won't put limitations on it. That's how far out Democrats have gone now. That they don't want to state any sort of limitations on it. It's not safe, legal, and rare. And even some of these people, there's a lot of normal people that are like, I don't think it should be past 24 weeks, or it should be viability, or 20 weeks, or 12 weeks, or something. You know, mainstream Democrats are like, no limitations. Very extreme position. So guns bad. We need limits on that constitutional right, as they will call it. Again, our rights aren't granted by the Constitution. They are, God-given rights. Those we need limits on, but abortion, we can't limit that. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. But I guess the only standards Democrats have are double standards. But here's what Joe Biden said about F-15s.
And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun.
So people are noting from this clip, or asking the question, I guess, how many F-15s did they have in like Afghanistan and all these other places that we've been at war with people with for a very long time, that made things work with their kind of low tech caliber firearms and their makeshift bombs and whatnot. And people are like, folks in the military, the government just went crazy, psychotic, started like trying to kill citizens. There's going to definitely be people who are not going to be cool with that. If like Millie can be like, I'll warn China about Trump. I'd like to think that someone, if Biden was like, you know what, we got to turn on the citizens, that people are going to be like, nah, I'm not about to just like take our F-15s and just like start killing Americans. Like I'd like to think that there's people, normal citizens who still have like families out there, among the population, would be like, you know what, I'm not gonna just start using all of our weapons right now to kill everyone we know and love. So there's that. But there's also a history of people with weapons being able to fend off other people with weapons, even if what they have is not F-15s. So there's that. And before he said that particular statement, he also said you can't get cannons if you don't want cannons. And you can't get, he started, listing stuff that you can actually get. You can actually go get a cannon. There are people who get, like, I don't remember if he said tanks and stuff, but you can get that stuff. You technically can. Is that the most practical sort of weapon to I don't know, arm yourself with when you're afraid there's going to be a mugger in the street in the middle of the night? No, not really. That's why we have guns. That's why we have guns. And it also bothers me how people are, you have a culture that makes women, they want to empower women, but at the same time, they're like, women are afraid, they're weak, they say that there's a rape culture, that women are always afraid something's going to happen, etc. And I'm like, why don't we encourage more women to have firearms and be trained with firearms and carry? Because that is the equalizer. That is the equalizer. So you're not making a safer world by having Less guns, especially when you have all these crazy, super violent people out in the street who are just beating women. Beating women. I don't know if you guys have seen some videos. I've played a few before on the show of people just beating women for no reason. No reason. They'll just be walking down the street and some person who's been let out of jail several times or has a record will just go crazy and just start wailing on women. There was one video in Pennsylvania, I think it was, when this guy was just beating up 3 women and they were doing their darndest. I had to give it to them, but men are naturally stronger. Men are naturally stronger, and there are women out there who do fear for their lives. But it would be a lot less fearful if people knew how to wield a weapon. So that's what we need to be encouraging. And you can say, well, just teach your men to have respect. Just teach them not to assault women. Yeah, obviously you should teach people just in general not to do stuff like that. But we live in a wicked world where some people, there's no accountability for their actions, for some heinous actions, especially right now where you have crime exploding everywhere. Crime exploding everywhere. And if people get arrested, they know that they're going to be back out in the streets because of these DAs that people like George Soros fund. And if you point that out, by the way, they're like, oh, you're anti-Semitic. It's like, the fact that he is Jewish has nothing to do with the fact that he's an evil billionaire. Nothing. He just is. He just is, and he's funding this stuff, and it's just a fact. But people want to rail against guns. Like you say you're pro-life, but you're pro-gun. Yeah, because guns save people's lives. They do. More lives than they take. Way more lives than they take. And it is an equalizer for women. It just is. You could take all the kickboxing, Taibo, Taijutsu, whatever classes in the world, and you may learn a thing or two, but when there's a big guy who outclasses you in weight and they knock you man, it's hard to get back up. Those are just the facts of life. I'm not saying that women can't defend themselves, but a lot of stuff y'all see in movies are movies. And it gives me no great pleasure to say stuff like that, because it's just, my dad kind of raised me like, you're a bar, it's it's like, you can just do anything because you're a bar. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or whatever, it's you're just a bar. So admitting like there's a weakness in the sex, it brings me no pleasure, but it is just a fact. So railing against guns in the way that Biden and other people rail against them, especially at the same time where they're not doing things to really to stop and curb violent crime, is just insane. It's just insane. But I guess if he decides to go full on tyrannical, he plans on using the F-15 or something worse. He's like, you can't go to war with us. We got F-15. So you brave patriots who want to defend the last, bit of civilization in the United States, you're not going to be able to, because they're going to drop some bombs on you or something. So it just sounds like a threat. Like, you guys want to stand up against us? Okay, you wouldn't even be able to do anything because we have all the. And then they'll get so upset about people having AR-15s and claim these are weapons of war. Well, what does it matter? It's not as powerful. It's not like it's an F-15, right? But you're so scared of the AR-15 when Biden's ready, like, destroy people with military-grade weapons, like severe military-grade weapons. Okay, but that is another reason why our president is so vastly unpopular. Let's move on to our hate hoax of the day. Oh, you know what? Before we go on to that, the Washington Free Beacon is reporting on a new book that's coming out, and Obama and Biden, they had a bit of a rocky relationship. The media likes to play as if they're BFFs and etc. And that's, sort of the persona the two of them have given off, except for when Obama came back to the White House. Oh my gosh, the videos of Joe just kind of standing in the background trying to get to Barack as he's just like going through the crowd, and everybody obviously loves him, they miss him, and Joe Biden just looks like a loser. Oh my gosh, I did a video that was pretty funny. I couldn't even get through it barely because I was laughing too much in the video. I was singing the song When Somebody Loves Me from Toy Story 2, and I just had Joe Biden looking so sad and nobody caring about him. But Washington Free Beacon reporting, shoot me now. Obama wanted to drop condescending Biden, new book says. Which I'm not really surprised. Barack Obama and Joe Biden had such a fraught relationship that Obama wanted to drop Biden from the 2012 Democratic ticket, according to excerpts from a new book obtained by the Daily Mail. Obama considered replacing his vice president with Hillary Clinton, leaving Biden distraught, according to The Long Alliance by Gabriel Dinbenetti. Obama eventually stuck with Biden, though he was furious at his VP's decision to blurt out the administration's support for gay marriage, an announcement Obama wanted to make himself. Biden's actions were tantamount to betrayal, an example of Biden trying to position himself in the front of the president, the book says, with staffers saying that we can't trust Biden to say his line. Which is really funny because Biden, his staff literally gives him note cards, very detailed, and he'll say stuff like, "Oh, I'm not allowed to say that. I'm going to get in trouble." And we're like, "Who's telling you these things? Like, who's controlling your speech in this kind of way?" But yeah, everyone has lines that you kind of want them to say, but it's just funny. For his part, Biden said he was not going to grovel to this guy, referring to Obama. My manhood is not negotiable. I could see Biden saying something like that, just really overcompensating. Like, here's this younger guy. Like, Biden tried to be that guy, right, who ran for president several times, and he just ended up having this long career in the Senate, and then he had to be tacked on to this new guy who came out of nowhere, and I could see him trying to overcompensate in some regard. While the mainstream media said for years that Obama and Biden had a bromance, with NBC News describing them as lifelong friends, this is far from the first indication that the two men did not like each other. Don't underestimate Joe's ability to bleep things up, Obama told a fellow Democrat during the 2020 presidential primary. He also urged Biden not to run. By the way, that's one time people should have listened to Obama. Like, he knew Joe Biden could bleep things up and bleep a lot of things up. He certainly has. He also urged Biden not to run in the 2016 election, again expressing support for Clinton. And don't get it twisted, I heard that Biden and Clinton don't like each other either, but he probably thought she was a much better shot. I thought Biden probably would have had a better, I mean, I guess he won now, it doesn't matter. But I originally was saying I thought we would have had a better shot in 2016 running than he did in 2020, but I guess when you have a worldwide pandemic and all the levers of power kind of rig the game for you, it doesn't really matter what year you run, I guess. While rumors about Obama dropping Biden were swirling in 2012, many media sources poo-pooed the notion, with the then NPR political editor Ken Rudin dismissing it as a story that is not grounded in reality and makes us look silly. Which NPR didn't report on the Hunter Biden laptop story because they thought it was silly, by the way. The bad blood between Biden and Obama dates back to when the two first met, the book says. As a senator, Obama thought Biden was condescending and bemoaned his future vice president's tendency to ramble, clearly loving every minute of it. Shoot me now, Obama wrote to his staffer when Biden started to speak. When Biden ran for president in 2020, Obama worried that his former VP wasn't up to the job. Obama thought Biden seemed tired, the book recounts, and worried that Biden run would be unthinkably painful. Oh, the man can tell the the truth. Look at that. Oh my gosh. It is unthinkably painful. It is quite painful, and not just painful to watch him deliver speeches. I mean, the State of the Union was so awful. Um, it's not just painful to see him at rallies when he goes out. Have to deal with the press. How he's like an ornery old man. He's just not with it. But it's just painful because we're all having to suffer the consequences of a Biden administration. So Obama was telling the truth right there. Obama was certainly telling the truth. It is quite painful. Let's move on to this other story. So there was a hate hoax recently. There was a volleyball player who claimed that there were racial slurs thrown at her and other players, and apparently that was not so. But the fan who was banned from BYU does not appear to have yelled slurs at the volleyball match, campus police says. So here's a little snippet of the volleyball player talking about
New
it.
fallout this morning from the volleyball court.
Well, at first it was kind of like did I hear that right? Like, I didn't really believe it.
Duke sophomore Rachel Richardson says she and her black teammates were targeted with racial slurs and threats during their game against rival BYU over the weekend.
Yeah, so ESPN had a statement, saying it was morally contemptible racial slurs and threats aimed at Rachel Richardson and her Duke volleyball teammates last Friday by BYU were beyond unacceptable. The teammates handled the unconscionable conduct with grace, dignity, and courage. For the rest of us, is a time to be stand up and condemn such reprehensible conduct and pledge that this type of disgusting behavior in any form is unacceptable and immoral. To those that may believe such slurs and threats are simply free speech, in quotation marks, reasonable and fair-minded people need to meet such speech with our own. The clear condemnation of such unacceptable behavior and loud, unmistakable support for those traumatized by it. To Rachel and her teammates, we stand with you and have your back. Your courage and strength are an example to all of us. Now, that sort of heckling isn't cool, and people have heckled in sports for a while, but apparently the police reviewed the footage and stuff, and they just did not. The person who got ejected and banned, they did not find that this person said what they said. So this from the Salt Lake Tribune. Brigham Young University is still investigating the racist slurs yelled at a Duke volleyball player last week, in part because the campus police say it doesn't appear that the man who was eventually banned was the person shouting the N-word. So they banned someone, they investigated, and he didn't even do it. The BYU police Lieutenant George Bissendorfer said Tuesday that based on initial review of surveillance footage of the crowd, the individual who was banned wasn't shouting anything while the Duke players were serving. When we watched the video, we did not observe that behavior from him, he said. Duke sophomore Rachel Richardson, the lone black starter on the team, has said she very distinctly heard a very strong and negative racial slur come from the student section during Friday's match while she was serving. Various BYU athletes' employees have been reviewing video from BYU TV and other cameras in the facility that the volleyball team has access to for film review. This has been ongoing since right after the match on Friday night. BYU Associate Athletic Director John McBride has said in a statement, the person who was banned was the person identified by Duke by using racial slurs. However, we have been unable to find any evidence of that person using the slurs in the match. Based on these reports, that could mean a second person who did shout the slur has not been identified and has not had any action taken against them by Provo University. BYU is asking for fans in attendance to share the video and accounts from the match to help with investigation. At the volleyball match the next day, BYU Athletic Director Tom Halmo encouraged them to as well speak, asking them to have the courage to take a stand and take care of each other. And more importantly, our guest who invited to come and play here. The police report says that on Sunday, one day later, someone left a threatening voicemail for a BYU athletic coach. The report does not identify the coach or provide details about the anonymous message. The report, with the names redacted, was obtained by the Salt Lake Tribune through public records request. It says the fan who was banned approached a Duke volleyball player after the game Friday. In an interaction she reported made her uncomfortable. The police report says the fan got in the face of the player, who was not identified, but doesn't note if anything was said. Okay. The player's family has said she was approached by a white man who told her to watch her back. After that, though, Duke coaches and players identified that man as the same one who yelled the N-word from the BYU student section at Richardson. According to the police report, police talked to the man, who's identified in the report as Utah Valley University student, and he denied shouting any slurs. He said the only thing he yelled was that the player shouldn't hit the ball into the net. He acknowledged that he did approach the Duke player after the match, thinking she was a friend of his who played for BYU. Their uniforms are the same color, the officer noted. So this is, from his point of view, this is really different. An officer later reviewed footage, according to the report, and wrote, "There was nothing seen on the game film that led me to believe that the man was the person who was making comments to the player who complained about being called an N-word. During the match's second set, the officer observed the UVU student was not present when Richardson was serving, which is when Richardson's family and Duke officials said the slurs were yelled. And later, when she was serving again, he was playing on his phone," the officer wrote. But the officer said the athletic department wanted to ban the man, so the school moved forward with the process. The officer told the man not to come to any future games indefinitely. So they know it was not this man. So this is what's crazy. I wanted to get to toward the end of the article. They know this man is not guilty, but they don't care. They didn't care. They wanted blood for whatever reason still, and they decided to make him pay and ban him from going to any future games. That's psychotic. That's psychotic. If there are people who are shouting the N-word in there, like, that's awful, that's terrible, people shouldn't do that, obviously. And, you know, I've played volleyball in school, sad to serve. You know, you just want to you play well. You want to go out there, have fun, etc. You don't want people heckling and I guess heckling is a part of just like sports. There'll be people in the crowd who would do stuff like that, and you kind of have to block some of that stuff out. But, you know, N-word, like, but if that even happened, we're not sure if it happened, but we do know that the person that they blamed didn't do it. They know they didn't do it, but they wanted someone to go down, so they banned them indefinitely. That's crazy. If he was like a creepy, like, old guy stalker or something, that'd be different. But you're talking about like another kid, like, that's crazy. That's crazy. People, what's that saying? There's a saying that racism has such a high demand, but it's in such a short supply. So people really try to stretch this stuff as much as they can, when a lot of times there's no there there. But that's just the world that we live in, unfortunately. Last thing I would like to share with you guys before we go, there was a video that from Steve Jobs that was circulating around the internet about what would happen if we really had good qualities kind of vouchers and competitiveness in schools. And I wanted to share it with you guys because I thought he made some really excellent points. And I'm not the greatest fan of like public schools. And I think there does need to be more competition, which, by the way, I did go to public schools. I wanted to be homeschooled, but my I don't know, my parents just weren't the type to do that, I guess. And I don't think schools are probably as bad as, at least the ones I went to, just kind of the stuff that you hear from the atmosphere today. But I went to an urban school, and I went to one that was more rural. The one that was rural was better than the ones in like my hometown of Pontiac and stuff. And so I've had like experience of bad public schools and good public schools, but I still think there should be a lot more competition in general. So I just thought this was a really good video from Steve Jobs.
What we need to do in education is go to the full voucher system. You know, if you ask who are the customers of education, but ultimately I think the customers are the parents, not even the students, but the parents. The problem that we have in this country is that the customers went away. The customers stopped paying attention to their schools for the most part. What happened was that mothers started working, and they didn't have time to spend at PTA meetings and watching their kids' school. Schools became much more institutionalized. Parents spent less and less and less time involved in their kids' education. What happens when a customer goes away and a monopoly gets control, which is what's happened in our country, is that the service level almost always goes down. I remember seeing a bumper sticker when the telephone company was all one, AT&T, the Bell system. I remember seeing a bumper sticker with the Bell logo on it, and it said, "We don't care. We don't have to." And that's what a monopoly is. That's what IBM was in their day, and that's certainly what the public school system is. They don't have to care. I believe very strongly that if the country gave each parent a voucher, a check for $4,400 that they could only spend at any accredited school, several things would happen. Number one, schools would start marketing themselves like crazy to parents to get students. Secondly, I think you see a lot of new schools starting. I've suggested as an example, if you go to Stanford Business School, they have a public policy track. They could start a school administrator track. So you could get a bunch of people coming out of college, tying up with somebody who just got out of business school. They could be starting their own schools. You could have 25-year-old kids out of college, very idealistic, full of energy. Instead of starting a Silicon Valley company, they'd start a school. And I believe they would do far better than many of our public school teachers do. The third thing you'd see is I believe that you would see the quality of schools, again, just like in a competitive market, start to rise. Some schools would go broke. A lot of the public schools would go broke. There's no question about it. It would be rather painful for the first several years. But I think far less painful than the kids going through the system as it is right now. And some people, the biggest complaint is, of course, that schools would pick off all the good kids and all the bad kids would be left to wallow together in either a private school or the remnants of the public school. To me, that's like saying, well, all the car manufacturers are going to make BMWs and Mercedeses and nobody's going to make a $10,000 car. Well, I think the most hotly competitive market right now is the $10,000 car area. You've got...
Yeah, so voucher system is a good way to go, but they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. They, as in like big lover government folk, but particularly Democrats, aren't too fond of it. Maybe some like local inner city Democrats will be okay with that. The ones who are really close on the ground talking to parents, but not the ones who are like throttled by teachers unions and want their support to get election and their minions to knock their doors and etc. So it's funny that you have all these people who are like, oh, we need to invest in education, which, you know, just transfer more of your dollars into paying for free college and praying and for pre-K and all this other stuff. But they'll do every other thing except fund students instead of systems. They're not into the voucher thing. They'll fight up against it, you know, day and night and claw and scratch and scream, because they're so afraid that it will just wipe out the public school education system. And that really is telling us, like, well, if you don't think people would put their vouchers to support the public school, then you're saying you're not producing a product that you think can compete if people had the choice. So I'm all up for more educational choices for kids, options for students, and so on, and just trying to destroy that monopoly. But Democrats will fight tooth and nail for it. He said that in the past they felt like they didn't have to care because they're like the only big people in town, and that's kind of how they want education to be. It's people claim there's not enough funding. There's a lot of schools that are very well funded, even in areas where maybe they don't get as much money as property taxes, because the property doesn't have as much value as, like, I don't know, areas where we have nicer homes, but a lot of that money is made up by the federal government. So schools are well funded. Do people always do good things with the money? Oh no. Oh no. And I got stories I could tell, but I'm like going over all my time. So I'm not I'm not gonna go. I've talked about it in the past, like I guess for example, Pontiac Central, which is no longer around now, but my dad way back in the day gave the dedication when that school opened up. But my sister went there and she graduated class of 2000. And so she remembered some church members who are older than her talking about like the school had won some kind of thing from Bill Gates to get all these computers. And she was just like, and this was like when they were in school or when that happened or something like that was a couple years earlier. And so she's just like, I don't know where these computers are. So she went to school and she acts like a teacher about it. Like, so where are these computers? And like, I'll show you. So they lead her to like a room and they open a door. It was a locked room and they open the door and there's all these computers here. They've just never been set up. And they're like, well, we couldn't find the right person to fix it on the network, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So they just let all those computers that were new and untouched just sit in the room. And at that point in time, those computers and stuff were older now, probably still, I don't know, they could have been better than some of the stuff that they had, but they had all these free computers that you just never accessed. When my dad heard that, he was so annoyed because my dad loves computers and he probably would have he could have partnered with some other parents and tried to figure it out. Like someone probably would have donated their time, but they just let it sit. So sometimes the problem isn't money. Sometimes it's leadership, you know, sometimes it's bureaucracy. And if you don't have competition, healthy competition, you're not going to get a good product. So I definitely believe in choice and options and vouchers for kids. I would probably just homeschool. um, but I believe people should have options. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that we have on the website. Please check out different merchandise like we got the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. Maybe we should send that to Fetterman a bit. So we can I don't know, not duck out of debates because he think Oz is too mean. We also got the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirts, My Money, My Business shirt. Love that one too. Got some pro-life stuff. And also it's pumpkin spice season now. So you guys can check out the pumpkin spice mugs. Got that also on the website. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. If you go to the website, it's black like color, tea like the drink, blacktnews.com. And hit the donation button and whatever you can give if you would like to. I'd very much appreciate it. If you can't, make sure that you're liking, subscribing, sharing, all that stuff does really also help as well. Also keep on the lookout for some new products, not just merchandise, but also working on my anti-abortion book, which will be going on pre-order very soon. So make sure that you guys are following up to date. I will not be streaming the next 2 days. I need to take a break. So God bless you guys, and I will see you on Monday.